Sandrine, give me Daniel's laptop. I looked up at Marcus, my husband's older brother, barely 10 minutes after we had returned from the cemetery. Daniel had just been buried, and somehow everyone around me was already talking about documents, accounts, company property, and signatures. Marcus held out his hand. You shouldn't worry about business right now, he said. I'll handle everything. Before I could answer, he picked up Daniel's briefcase from beside my chair and tucked the laptop under his arm. One of Daniel's relatives nodded approvingly. Marcus knows how these things work. I wanted to tell him to put everything back, but my throat tightened. Daniel had been the person who handled the complicated financial details of our life. Marcus knew that. Then Marcus placed a folder in front of me. Routine estate papers. Sign these tonight and I'll submit them tomorrow. I opened it. Halfway down the second page, 2 phrases caught my eye. Voting rights. Share authorization. What exactly am I signing? Marcus reached across the table and calmly closed the folder. Nothing you need to worry about today. That answer made me pull my hand away from the pen. Marcus's expression hardened for barely a second. Then he smiled. Daniel wouldn't want you buried in paperwork. I'll read it first. The smile disappeared. Marcus took the folder, but before walking away, he reminded everyone within earshot that Daniel had always trusted him with business matters. That was when another voice came quietly from behind me. Sandrine. I turned. Adrian Haldon, Daniel's CEO, stood a few feet away. He had attended the funeral but barely spoken. Now he looked toward Marcus before lowering his voice. Come to my office tomorrow. It's urgent. My stomach tightened. What happened? Adrian hesitated. Trust me, and don't tell your family. Is this about Daniel? Did he do something? Adrian looked toward Marcus again. Tomorrow. That night, I barely slept. I kept remembering Daniel during his final weeks, locking documents in his study, taking calls after midnight, becoming strangely protective of his work. And one sentence he had repeated more than once suddenly felt different. If anything ever happens to me, Sandrine, don't sign anything immediately. I had always told him not to talk like that. Now Marcus wanted my signature the same day I buried him. The next morning, I entered Haldon Technologies and took the elevator to the executive floor. Adrian's assistant opened his office door. I stepped inside, then stopped. Someone was already sitting behind Adrian's desk, settled into the chair Daniel had used during countless meetings. The man slowly turned toward me. Marcus. And the moment he saw me, his face changed. Why was my brother-in-law already sitting in Daniel's chair? Sandrine. Marcus stood so quickly that Daniel's old chair rolled backward. For the first time since the funeral, he looked genuinely caught off guard. You weren't supposed to be involved in this. I stayed near the doorway. Then why did Adrian tell me to come? Marcus glanced across the office. Adrian stood beside the window. Next to him was Rachel Wynn, Haldon Technologies' attorney, holding a thin stack of documents. I looked back at Marcus. And why are you sitting in Daniel's chair? Marcus straightened his jacket. Adrian asked me here to discuss continuity. Daniel's position created responsibilities that can't simply disappear. Responsibilities belonging to you. Someone experienced has to represent the family's interests. Rachel stepped forward. Actually, Mrs. Cole, there's something we need you to confirm. She placed a document on the desk and turned it toward me. My name was printed across the top. Below it was language authorizing the temporary transfer of Daniel's voting rights in Haldon Technologies. To Marcus. I stared at the page. What is this? Marcus answered before Rachel could. It's what we discussed. We never discussed this. His jaw tightened. Daniel and I did. I looked at him. Marcus lowered his voice. Your husband understood that you weren't involved in the corporate side of his life. He wanted someone experienced handling things if something happened. And he chose you. Daniel trusted me. There it was again. The same argument Marcus had used at the funeral. For a moment, doubt crept in. Daniel had handled most of his company affairs privately. Maybe there were conversations between the brothers I knew nothing about. Then Adrian spoke. Marcus, where did you get this authorization? Marcus barely hesitated. Daniel gave it to me. The room became silent. Adrian walked behind his desk and opened the bottom drawer. No, he said. Daniel gave something to me. He removed a sealed folder. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Daniel. Across the front were 3 words written in thick black ink. For Sandrine only. My breath caught. Daniel wrote that. Adrian nodded and extended the folder toward me. Marcus suddenly stood. Wait. I reached for it. Marcus moved faster. He stepped between us, snatched Daniel's sealed folder directly from Adrian's hand, and pulled it against his chest. Put it down, Marcus. Adrian's voice changed instantly. Marcus kept Daniel's envelope against his chest. This could contain confidential company information. Rachel stepped closer. It contains material Daniel specifically authorized Sandrine to receive. Marcus looked at me as though I were the problem. You don't understand what you're walking into. Something in me finally snapped into place. It has my name on it, I said. Give it to me. Marcus didn't move. Now, for the first time since Daniel died, he obeyed me. He dropped the envelope onto the desk. Rachel immediately slid it toward my side. Daniel deposited this with Adrian 2 weeks ago, she said. His instructions were explicit. You were to receive it personally. No other member of the Cole family was authorized to collect it. I looked at Marcus. His face had gone still. Why would Daniel do that? Adrian answered. Because he discovered irregular transactions involving an account under his supervision. My stomach dropped. Transactions. I stared at the envelope. Are you saying Daniel did something? Marcus seized the opening. He was under enormous pressure, Sandrine. You saw what he was like near the end. Maybe he made decisions he regretted. I turned slowly toward him. Minutes earlier, Marcus had told me Daniel trusted him. Now he was suggesting my husband had done something wrong. Adrian cut him off. Daniel didn't authorize those transactions. Marcus stopped. Adrian continued. He reported them. The silence afterward felt heavier than anything Marcus had said. Rachel returned to the supposed voting authorization. There's another problem. She placed Daniel's official corporate records beside Marcus's document. The dates don't match. Marcus's eyes dropped toward the papers. Rachel pointed to the submission record. This request, transferring Sandrine's voting authority, was submitted after Daniel died. I felt cold. When? Rachel looked directly at me. While you were preparing his funeral. I remembered Marcus appearing constantly that week, offering to take care of everything. He hadn't been helping me. He had been moving ahead without me. Adrian stepped toward Marcus. You told this company Sandrine had agreed to let you control Daniel's voting rights. Marcus said nothing. Adrian's expression hardened. You should tell Sandrine what you were trying to take from her. Marcus finally stopped pretending. You want the truth, he said. Sandrine has never managed corporate holdings in her life. He pointed toward the papers on Adrian's desk. Daniel's shares carry influence. Decisions have to be made quickly. Giving me temporary voting authority protects what Daniel built. I stared at him. Those papers you gave me after the funeral weren't routine estate documents. Marcus didn't answer. Suddenly, every strange detail connected. Daniel warning me not to sign anything immediately. Marcus taking Daniel's laptop and briefcase before I had even left the funeral reception. Adrian secretly asking me to come here. And Marcus submitting paperwork while I was arranging my husband's burial. Rachel gathered the documents into one file. "It doesn't matter what justification you give now," she told Marcus. "The transfer has been frozen." Marcus turned sharply. "What?" "Sandrine never authorized it. You cannot exercise Daniel's voting rights." His face changed. Rachel continued. "We also preserved the submission records showing when the authorization was filed and how it entered our system." Adrian walked toward his computer. "Effective immediately, your temporary access to Daniel's corporate files is suspended pending investigation." Marcus looked at me. "Sandrine, think carefully. Your husband wanted his family protected." I almost laughed at the cruelty of those words. "Then explain something." I pointed toward Daniel's envelope. "Why did my husband specifically tell Adrian not to let his family touch that?" Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I broke the seal myself. Inside was a handwritten letter from Daniel, copies of financial records, instructions concerning his shares, and several pages documenting transactions I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I unfolded Daniel's letter. The first line was addressed directly to me. I began reading. Within seconds, I understood why Daniel had been taking those late-night calls, why he had locked documents away, and why Marcus had tried to get my signature before I learned what Daniel owned. Then Rachel's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and immediately answered. "Yes." She listened without speaking. Marcus watched her. So did I. Rachel slowly lowered the phone and turned toward him. "The compliance team just confirmed Daniel's records." Rachel placed her phone on the desk. Marcus didn't ask what the compliance team had confirmed. He seemed to already know. I looked down at Daniel's letter and kept reading. Months earlier, Daniel had noticed transactions passing through company accounts connected to projects Marcus could access as an outside consultant. The approvals didn't match the normal process, and some records had been handled without the authorization Daniel expected to see. Instead of confronting Marcus immediately, Daniel documented everything. He preserved copies. Then he reported the irregularities internally and asked that they be independently verified. Adrian looked at me. "Daniel wasn't under investigation, Sandrine. He was helping us establish what happened." I turned toward Marcus. The man who had suggested only minutes earlier that Daniel might have made desperate financial decisions couldn't meet my eyes. Daniel's letter explained something else. He knew Marcus understood exactly how valuable his Hidden Technologies shares were. And Daniel knew me. He knew that if I suddenly had to deal with his estate while grieving, I would probably turn to family for help. Especially Marcus. That was why Daniel had warned me. Don't sign anything immediately. It was why he had left the envelope with Adrian instead of at home. And it was why his instructions stated that his shares would pass through his estate arrangements to me. Marcus had no automatic authority over them. I reached Daniel's final personal paragraph. He wrote that trusting people was one of the things he loved about me. But then came the sentence that broke whatever hesitation remained. He asked me never to let grief make decisions for me. I folded the letter carefully. Marcus finally spoke. "Sandrine, I was trying to protect what Daniel built." I picked up the unsigned documents he had handed me after the funeral and placed them beside the authorization he had submitted to Hidden Technologies. "Then, why did you need my signature before I knew what I owned?" Marcus stared at the documents. No answer came. Adrian broke the silence. "Marcus, you will no longer be considered for the executive advisory position." Marcus looked up. "Adrian, your access is suspended. Daniel's records and the attempted authorization are going to legal and compliance for formal review. The questionable transactions would now be investigated through the company's established process, along with the paperwork Marcus had submitted after Daniel's death. I didn't stay to watch him argue. I hired independent estate counsel. The transfer Marcus wanted never happened. And when relatives eventually learned that I had never agreed to give Marcus control, despite what he had claimed, his influence inside the family began collapsing too. I kept Daniel's shares, but I didn't suddenly pretend I knew everything about corporate finance. I hired an independent professional to advise me on the technical decisions while keeping final voting authority myself. The difference was simple. Advice was something I could choose. Control was something Marcus had tried to take. Months later, I returned to Halden Technologies for a shareholder meeting. When I entered the executive conference area, I saw Daniel's old chair. Marcus wasn't sitting in it. For a moment, I remembered standing in that doorway, newly widowed, believing everyone else understood my husband's life better than I did. I had been wrong. I didn't need to become Daniel. I only needed to protect what he had trusted me with. I sat at the table, opened the meeting documents, and read every page before signing anything. Marcus thought Daniel's funeral had left me powerless, but Daniel had made sure the truth would reach me before Marcus ever got my signature.